it's basically a reporting and review mechanism. So it provides for the fact that countries need to report. The countries need to report at least biannually about not only their inventories, like they are already doing under the Kyoto Protocol, but they also need to report on the progress made towards their nationally determined contributions, so towards their NDCs. Interestingly, it also not only includes the mitigation actions that the countries need to take, but it also includes support, so financial support, technological support, and in theory it also includes adaptation actions, although it's somewhat of a unique case in this provision. Also interestingly, because we're now dealing with an agreement that covers all countries, developed and developing countries. Developing countries have been pushing for at least some kind of acknowledgement in this framework that takes into account their national circumstances. So what the provision on the transparency framework does is that it links the mechanism, or it links this framework to the notion of countries' capacities. So it suggests that there will be some kind of built-in flexibility in the design of this framework that is linked to countries' capacities, but it does not indicate how we actually measure these capacities. So this is a very important open question of how do we differentiate between countries on the basis of their capacities under this transparency framework. Then also, and related to that, there are already a number of reporting and review processes under the UNFCCC. So Maria talked about the reporting and review processes under the Kyoto Protocol, but also after the Kyoto Protocol entered into force, parties agreed on new reporting and review processes under the UNFCCC for both developed and developing countries. But the question is, what do we do with those processes? So to some extent, we might build on them, and that's what the Paris Agreement suggests as well. We need to build on the experience with these processes. But what elements should we keep, and what elements will we discard in the end? Still unclear. But the one thing that is clear is that it needs to somehow be related to the existing reporting and review processes. Then following the reporting, so as I already mentioned, so countries need to report on their emissions and through inventories, but also through a report on their progress that they made towards their nationally determined contributions. Following this process, like in the Kyoto Protocol and also like in the current reporting and review system, there will be an expert review of these biannual reports by experts, and then following these expert review, or maybe at the same time, there will be some kind of multilateral consideration. What that will entail exactly, we don't know. At the moment, there are multilateral assessments, and there's, for developing countries, a so-called facilitative sharing of views, which basically means a bit of a Q&A between parties during the sessions. It might also be written questions that a party needs to respond to, but it's a lot of talking about what countries have been reporting.